Star Wars. Best place for below average Star Wars.
Hello there, and welcome to the Star Wars Show, a UK-based Star Wars podcast with in-depth discussions and analysis sprinkled with some silliness. I am the Geordie Jedi Pete.
And I'm Iain, aka Star Wars Iain.
And we are back to break down the latest Star Wars news, comings and goings in a galaxy far, far away. Our good friend Jason Honderling is missing in action today. We wish him the very best of a fast recovery from his ongoing chest issues, and we hope to have him back on the podcast very, very soon. May the force be with you, Jason. Let's kick straight into our first story. There's been a change in Lucasfilm. The vice president of development has changed. So it is Derek Hoffman who takes over as Lucasfilm's vice president of development. Basically, Iain Roberts, who sort of had a fast rise through Lucasfilm, probably throughout the journey of sort of the sequel trilogy and the animations and such. She departs Lucasfilm to go to Searchlight Pictures, so that obviously used to be Fox Searchlight, which is now just Searchlight, which is under the Disney umbrella. So Iain Roberts leaves Lucasfilm to go to another Disney company in what seems like a bit of maybe chess being played by Bob Iger and the Disney board. Newcomer Derek Hoffman takes over as vice president of development, responsible for helping to lead the team that develops stories for adaptation in live action. Hoffman is known within the industry for his works on the films in the X-Men franchise, spearheading their move into television. This is what was listed on Lucasfilm.com. Since attending Indiana University, Derek Hoffman has worked in the film, video game, and comic book industry for the last 24 years. Getting his start with the Donner's Company as a runner, he quickly moved into an assistant role for director Richard Donner, and then to assistant producer on the feature film Timeline and co-producer on 16 Blocks. Derek next became a development executive and later vice president for the company, where he worked on each film in the X-Men franchise, including as associate producer on X-Men Days of Future Past. Derek ultimately spearheaded the franchise's move into television, serving as co-executive producer on the FX series Legion and as executive producer on Fox's The Gifted. At Lucasfilm, Derek will help lead the team that develops our stories for adaptation in live action. So there we go. He will be helping develop the stories for live action. So he's not going to be looking at animation, comics, books, any other type of medium. We know Star Wars has a lot of stuff in other type of mediums these days. It's strictly going to be for live action. So I imagine it's going to be movies and live action Disney Plus series. What's your thoughts on sort of a little change around, sort of at executive level? Obviously, Iain Roberts, who's been there throughout, the entire sequel era almost, and, in the Kathleen Kennedy era, you could say. And now, obviously, she departs to go to Searchlight, and Derek Hoffman comes in to work underneath Kathleen Kennedy.
I'm not really. I don't really follow this type of stuff, but maybe it's just a case of maybe freshening it up, getting new ideas. Obviously, reading off his bio there, he has got a lot of experience in comics, TV, movies, and that type of thing. So maybe it's just maybe they just fancy a freshen up of ideas. Maybe she wanted to move on. We don't know, but it's. I don't see it as a bad thing. Maybe new ideas potentially breathe new life into certain things, and that'll be it's never a bad thing.
Yeah, I think Iain Roberts has been courted throughout Hollywood. There's sort of a stock's risen quite a bit in the last 15 years, the last decade. So I imagine Searchlight came and got her, obviously to move within the Disney company. And then I imagine Lucasfilm then had to look to replace. And then they've brought in Derek, who I think, seems to have good experience. Do you know what I mean? Working with the Marvel franchise, X-Men, particularly not just the movie side, but also the television side. Hopefully that experience can help him in Star Wars live action, where we do have, we're coming back to theatres soon, May 26th. And the Disney company wants to keep Star Wars in cinemas, I suppose, every couple of years, as well as having the odd few series on Disney Plus. Less than what we've had in the past, but still have a presence there. And it looks like Derek Hoffman is the man with the job. But I'm glad that we've got somebody who, I suppose 24 years experience in the business is fantastic. The fact he came from the ground up, he started as a runner for Richard Donner, who obviously famously directed Superman, and rose up through that company from the bottom to the top, I suppose, is good. It means he's earned his stripes and he's seen every aspect of Hollywood, I suppose, and of the film industry, is a positive thing. What's your thoughts when you hear about him working on the X-Men franchise? Obviously, we know it sort of pitted out a bit towards the end. Now it's saying that his last film he worked on was X-Men Days of Futures Past, which I remember enjoying, if I remember correctly. And I haven't really seen too many of the X-Men series on television, but I do know that they sort of didn't get renewed, although they do seem to have a cult following and enjoyed by some fans.
Yeah, Days of Future Past was really good. I think that's probably my favourite X-Men movie, which is cool. The TV shows, I can't remember. I think it was stuff like The Gifted and that, and I don't remember really watching them, so I can't really comment on his TV work. But Days of Future Past was very good. The X-Men, I overall I enjoyed the X-Men movies. Like you said, they kind of petered out, but I think at that point, I think they knew they were getting bought out, and they just threw their hands up and said, "No, we'll just make this, and that's it." So yeah, no, like I said, he sounds hugely experienced, and like you said, I like the fact that he started from the bottom and worked his way up. I always find in jobs I've been in that they're the best people to work for, because it's not just someone coming in who's never started at the bottom. So I would put that as a plus, to be fair.
Definitely a plus. I agree with what you said there about people who come in from the bottom and work their way up and acquire that skill set and that human side of it as well. I think those are the best leaders. I think when you think about the X-Men franchise, and yes, it did peter out towards the end, as I said, but it says that he sort of worked on each film in the X-Men franchise, okay, and then hit his sort of peak at X-Men Days of Future Past. But you got to remember that, like, obviously with what Sony were doing with Spider-Man, and then with what Fox were doing with X-Men 1 and 2, definitely, is sort of what led Marvel Studios to begin and get in the game. So, he's sort of got his footprint over, the sort of early beginnings and what him and his team were doing, not just him, but things he was working on had a transformative effect on the business. And, we all know the Marvel universe and how much that, just transcends all culture, really, how much it's enjoyed. So I think time will tell with how much goodness he brings to the role, but I think for me, again, he's worked hard, he's got lots of experience, he's came from the bottom to the top. Like I said, it looks like he's been very involved in sort of that X-Men franchise and in the dawn of the comic book movie almost, which has now become the greatest type of film, certainly box office wise anyway, within Hollywood. So hopefully he can come and put all that to good work here in the Star Wars universe. Do you think this will have an effect on any of the projects that are sort of, like, we know the Mandalorian Grogu is coming in May of 2026. That's the next Star Wars movie hit cinemas. Obviously, we know we've had movies announced, but they're not even in pre-production, just in developmental stage, right? Which is sort of, the Rey film, which, as we talked about, they'll be just got new writers. You've got James Mangold's Dawn of the Jedi movie, so James Mangold's back with a bang with the Bob Dylan biopic, A Complete Unknown. Absolutely wonderful movie. I've seen it, getting good reviews as well. It's been nominated for a few things, so he's back with a bang. But his movie still hasn't got a script. And then obviously we've got the third film that was announced, which was a Dave Filoni directed Mandoverse movie, which isn't Mandalorian Grogu, which probably will happen because it looks like the Mandalorian verse is going strong. Do you think this could have an effect on maybe some of this films that have been announced but have not hit cameras yet, and maybe something different comes into play?
Well, yeah, so say, for example, I think Ahsoka Season 2, I think that starts production in the next couple of months, because I think they're filming it in the UK, so I don't see him having an effect on that. It's very much a Dave-led project. For the Rey movie, potentially, because I saw the quote from Daisy Ridley the other day, they're taking their time with it, but maybe he will help with that. The James Mangold thing, absolutely. Like you said, there's not even a script for it, so I doubt they've started anything for that. The Dave film, I think, will be under him, and he will obviously do that once we get past the Mandalorian Grogu and Ahsoka Season 2 and all that type of stuff. So yeah, I do think, and then potentially we don't know, like we get to Celebration, there could be shows announced or something announced that we don't know about. They tend to like to do that, so maybe he will have a hand in them. But as for the stuff that hasn't started production, like the Mangold film, the Rey movie, and potentially any Star Wars series we don't know about, then yes, I definitely could see him having a hand in that.
Speaking of Daisy Ridley, moving on to our second topic, she's been speaking, promoting her new film, and what she said on her new Star Wars film, she said, "I know the story and I am very excited." Quite a strange title when you know what, you've just got a new writer. She does talk about that as well. She says, "I have not read the latest script, but I know that's happening and I know the story, and I think what feels really good is that George is a phenomenal writer," really told us. "I think we're making sure that the story is the best way, the script is the best way to tell the story, and I think it will be worthwhile for everyone watching it. I'm very excited," yeah. So, obviously, a snippet of sort of a red carpet interview. Obviously, when she mentions George, she means George Nolfi, who's, of course, the latest writer to join the movie. Daisy Ridley's obviously continuing her press tour for Cleaner. And obviously, whenever she's on any type of press tour, they always ask the Star Wars question, which is what's happened here. For me, I don't read too much into it. I think it's good that she's excited about it still. It's good that at least she's trying to paint a picture of, the script maybe just needs tuning up to be its very best form. And that's why there's a new writer in, and then it's not like a page one rewrite. Like the story beats are the same as what it sounds like, and this overall arc's going to be the same, but it's more of just a tune up, like rather than a page one rewrite. I don't know what your thoughts are on this being sort of the third writer on the project, and then obviously the fact that Daisy's saying that the story's probably going to stay very similar to how it was in the last pass at the script by the last writers.
Like we talked about before, I'm more than happy for them to take their time. I'd rather them get it right, make sure the script's tight and really good to ensure that we get the best film possible. Like I said, there's been instances before where they've rushed stuff out and you can tell. So I'm more than happy for them to take the time. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of writer changes in Hollywood, but I think with like stuff like Marvel and Star Wars and that, I think it gets highlighted more because obviously they're big tentpole franchises. Like you look at stuff like, I know it's not rewrites, but you look at stuff like Rogue One, they got reshot and everyone heard about that, and that's my second favorite Star Wars movie of all time. So these issues around like reshoots or rewriting of films, it's not always bad. And like you said, I'd rather it be good and just take an extra year or two than be mediocre and we can have it now, if you know what I mean.
Definitely. I think, yeah, I totally agree with you. I think if he is just on to sort of tune it up and just make it that much more better, then fantastic, which is what she's saying there. So hopefully she's telling the truth and that is the case. I think if it is a page one rewrite and we're going back to the start, then that's when it gets tricky for me because you've got a director signed on for a project that they don't even know what it is if they're doing a page one rewrite. And then secondly, like Daisy can say that the story's good all she wants, but if the script's a page one rewrite, then she doesn't know what the story is at all. So how can these people be on the same page, I suppose? But there's nothing to say it is a page one rewrite, and like I said, I don't think Daisy would lie. I think she would just go about the question a bit differently if that was the crack. Her film Cleaner does hit cinemas on February 21st, so keep an eye out for that. Daisy was also asked about wanting to be in the Marvel and DC universes, I think, recently on this press tour, and said that she would love to be in the Marvel and DC universe, which I suppose who wouldn't want to be as an actor? It's very high paid work. You get good merchandise. You can do lots of Comic Cons and make money that way because of it. You make money off your likeness in the theme parks and all of that. Could you see Daisy Ridley being in the Marvel or the DC universe?
Yeah, I can pretty much see any actor or actress in it, to be fair. Like you said, it's not just a case if you get the one-off payment for actually the movie. I see a lot of actors, they're on the convention circuit, and that's where they make a lot of their money. I know Tamora Morrison's quite active in the convention circuit, people like Ming-Na Wen and that type of stuff. So yeah, no, I could definitely see her in the Marvel universe. Like I said, I think every actor or actress would take a role in there because, like you said, they're a license to print money nine times out of 10. Unless it's made by Sony, but then me.
Yeah. And I think you got to remember as well, as like after Rise of Skywalker came out, obviously a mix between that and COVID, she didn't really get much work for a couple of years. So So I think she's probably very much in the case of like, yes, I would actually love to work. She's had a couple of projects come out recently. Obviously, the Cleaner's out soon, which is good to see. Obviously, they are developing that Star Wars story, which is good for her. So Daisy will be back after riding out that dry period.
To be fair, you don't really see her on the convention circuit a lot, do you, Daisy?
It's because she's like top tier, isn't she? So I think you have tiers. So, and it's not because she wants to be top tier. So I'm not saying that she's chosen this, but I think just through look at the draw, you know, you have like Mark Hamill, like Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford, right? That like would do conventions, but they'd be like almost behind the iron curtain. Like they'd do certain things at certain times of the day, but wouldn't do everything all the time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think like she's sort of that level. You know, she was a trio, so
yeah. Oscar Isaac and John Boyega.
So they do conventions, but they do seem to do them like they're not signing all day every day. Does that make sense? There might be a certain point for signing and a certain point for pictures.
I assume, it's the same with the prequels, isn't it? It's you and Hayden and Natalie, to be fair.
Yeah, and you tend to do more as your movies have been out longer. So, like Hugh and Hayden are doing a lot more, for example.
Yeah.
Natalie, not so much, because she's obviously probably the busiest actor out of the three. So I can see Daisy doing more as sort of the, you know, Force Awakens turns 10 this year. So as that generation gets older and starts attending more cons, I can see her attending more and doing things that way if she wants to. But yeah, so I think time will tell. I think also, you know, you got to remember there was sort of the whole Mary Sue-ness and the sort of the right wing attacking her a bit. Like, I think, does she want to go to these conventions? And maybe that's why as well she does less. I maybe think that could definitely be a factor. Like, who am I going to be meeting at these things and what are they going to do to me? Almost. But like I said, again, I think as time goes on, I think she'll attend more. And then definitely as the new Star Wars project comes out, hopefully we see her definitely at Star Wars celebrations more often, especially if that is the beginning of sort of a new series of films rather than just a one-off.
To be fair, she came out at Celebration, obviously in London, and she got cheered there. So I think sometimes we do put in stock of how toxic the fan base is. If you read stuff like Twitter and that, I think it is quite toxic. But every person I met at Celebration wasn't like that. I think there's a lot of online grift when it comes to saying you hate stuff, and that's fine. That people can do that if they want. Not to say that criticism isn't valid, of course it is, but yeah, I think like when she came out of Celebration in London, obviously I wasn't in the room, but I was in the convention centre. She got cheered out the building, so I think sometimes people put too much stock into how toxic the fan base is. Like Twitter's a cesspool anyway, so I think if she were to come to conventions, I don't think she would get any grief anyway.
I think Celebration's a different type of convention, so it's all Star Wars, and the Star Wars haters tend not to attend. But I think if you go to a general con, you're mixing it up with more general fans who are like part of these circles on social media. If that makes sense. I think that's why she does less of them. It's probably one of the reasons why, possibly. Anyway.
Yeah.
Moving on to our next bit of news. So me and the wonderful Chris Santos did cover this slightly last week on our Podcast Day special episode. But essentially, Sigourney Weaver was interviewed by Games Radar Plus. She was obviously promoting Apple TV's The Gorge. But she was talking about The Mandalorian Grogu, which, as I mentioned, comes to cinemas in May 2026. It's a continuation of the Mandalorian storyline, so it's almost in between Season 3 and Season 4 if we get a Season 4. And she said that I play a wonderful character who is, you know, in a position of authority. She says, I get to have scenes with a little Grogu, which is probably why I did the movie. And he's a little badass too. He's going to be wonderful for people to see what Grogu is up to now because he's grown up a little bit and is capable of much more than maybe we think just watching this series. She said, I play a wonderful character who is, you know, in a position of authority, and I have to send the Mandalorian out on a mission on the Outer Rim where all the bad stuff happens. So I don't know what your thoughts are on sort of those types of comments. Obviously, we had heard that she'd been cast. This is the first time she spoke about it. We don't know if the Mandalorian Grogu is going to be like fully on set between Season 3 and Season 4, or is it going to maybe show some flashbacks and stuff? I suppose time will tell on that. But it sounds to me like if she is giving the Mandalorian sort of missions from a point of authority and sending him out into the Outer Rim, then maybe she is linked to the New Republic. Do you know what your thoughts are on that?
I do like a quote where he says, "Oh, he goes out to the outer rim where the bad stuff happens," and like, yeah, that's pretty accurate. But yeah, when it comes to position of authority, I would then believe she is either playing a New Republic politician or military leader, which would be cool. Because at the end of season 3, he obviously offers to work for the New Republic on a case by case basis. He obviously offers that up to Kaz and Tether. I could see her potentially being a leader of the Adelphi Rangers, which is the base we see in Mando season 3 where Zeb was and everything. And she could be the leader of the Adelphi Rangers, which would be cool. I just think it's awesome that we're getting Sigourney Weaver in Star Wars anyway. That's a pretty awesome type thing that I didn't think would happen. Or, on second hand, could she potentially be like an underworld bounty hunters guild type person, maybe taking over from Grief Karga? Obviously, Carl Weathers, obviously not with us anymore, which is a shame. But then, no, I don't. To be fair, I don't think Mando would go back to the guild. So, yeah, I could either see her being an underworld type person or a New Republic leader. I don't see her being an Imperial or anything like that, because obviously he is in the business of hunting them down.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think for me, she certainly has the gravitas, but also the grittiness to be sort of a strong political figure or a strong military figure, whether that be New Republic or First Order or Imperial Remnant, or indeed, again, as sort of a crime boss. I have seen, outside of this interview that she did, which was like official, there is rumours that she's playing somebody called New Republic Colonel Bishop. So I don't know if that links into that base you're talking about.
Yeah, Bishop. That's a nice little callback to Aliens, anyway. But no, I could definitely see her being like a leader. She has that gravitas, that type of experience, and people, even like common, like not super fans, will go, "Oh, it's Sigourney Weaver." Obviously, she's been a famous actress now since the 70s, 80s. I can't remember when Aliens came out, but I could definitely see that. I've seen that. I've seen also that she's rumoured to send the Mando either after or to rescue Rot of the Hutt, which I've seen a rumour of. I don't know if that's true, but yeah, I could see her being a New Republic colonel.
She went on to say that she admires Star Wars, but she doesn't sit around wishing I was in another franchise because she's been so lucky to have been in wonderful ones. She said, but at the time when I was offered it, I was delighted. I'm a great fan of Jon Favreau. I was already a great fan of The Mandalorian. So it sounds like she's already sort of clued into the series. And it's not just a job, it's almost something she was intrigued about anyway. Obviously, you can see Sigourney Weaver in The Gorge, which premieres globally on Apple Plus TV on Friday, February 14th. So that's already aired. And obviously, as we said, The Mandalorian Grogu does hit theatres in May 2026. Have you heard who's rumoured to be playing Rota the Hutt in The Mandalorian Grogu?
Yeah, it's the guy from The Bear, is it? I don't know his name, I'll be honest. But yeah, it's the guy...
Jeremy Allen White?
That's it, yes.
Do you think he is? Do you think he is doing that?
I think it's confirmed, pretty much. I think it's in like Hollywood Reporter and that. And because when I first saw that, I woke up and I saw it. I thought, this is a joke. This. I thought, no way. And then when it came out in like Variety and Hollywood Reporter, and I think they've been commenting interviews like where he's mentioned it. Yeah, no, it's crazy. I've always wondered what happened. I think that's a long running question the fans had, obviously, after we see Rotter in the Clone Wars movie, and I think in another episode of the Clone Wars. Where is he? What's happened to him? Obviously, his dad obviously dies at the beginning of Return of the Jedi. It'd be interesting to see if he is playing him, which I believe he is, what his role will be in the movie. Apparently, it's quite a substantial role. That's what I've read.
Because if you think about this, so obviously we've seen the Book of Boba Fett, which is part of the Mandoverse, right? And obviously Jabba the Hutt dies and Bib Fortuna takes over. No one does anything. And it's not until Boba Fett takes over that them two Hutt brothers and sisters turn up to query it. Yeah. But really, wouldn't it be Jabba's son who would take over from Jabba if Jabba died, not Bib Fortuna?
You'd think so, but then that's the question: where's he been? This is obviously potentially what we're going to find out. Like, where maybe he isn't. Maybe he hasn't gone to a life of crime. If it might be a different type of story for him. But you'd think Jabba the Hutt's son would take over his empire, yeah?
Well,
You think so?
what if Rota the Hutt actually has a beef sandwich shop on a different planet, and that's what he does? He's a chef making beef sarnies.
That would be quite funny, yeah.
It would
That
be
would be quite funny.
the Bear times Star Wars collaboration,
Yeah.
wouldn't it?
It is the weirdest. It was the weirdest thing when I saw that. I thought this is a joke, this, and then it was like, no, this is real. I'm like, oh, bloody hell, that's crazy. Like I didn't think it sounds. To be fair, the cast and the idea, and obviously we've seen the footage that was shown at where was the footage shown? D23, and it looked good. It did look good. I saw snowtroopers. I saw AT-ATs. It looked good, and potentially we probably will get a trailer. I would have thought at Celebration. So yeah, I am looking forward to the Mandalorian Grogu movie. Like you said, if we potentially with season 4 as well, if this does well in the cinemas, they're going to do another movie. They will do because they want to make the bang for the buck and they want to have a Star Wars success in the film in the cinema again. And the Mandalorian's a well established project. Everyone, it launched Disney Plus. It was the first 2 seasons. It definitely got rave reviews. The third, not as much, but I still enjoyed the 3rd season. And yeah, I think if this movie hits, they will do another film. It won't be season 4. It'll be The Mandalorian Grogu Strikes Back.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
It certainly would be.
And I do think it will be successful because there's a lot of kids that have grown up on Grogu, and the parents will be able to say, "Look, there's a Mandalorian film in the cinema." I think it will do very well. The Mandalorian Grogu.
Yeah, I think the Mandalorian Grogu was something that was done so right. It got the right amount of attention. All the press was right for it. So I think, should they hit us with a killer trailer, right? They hit us with a killer trailer and a killer poster, then this is what everyone's talking about for summer 2026, which is going to be wonderful.
Let's be honest, though, that definitely wasn't the plan because me and you were at Celebration when they announced those movies, and then all of a sudden it was a couple of months later. It was like, oh, the Mandalorian Grogu are coming to cinemas. So it definitely wasn't the plan. But I'm happy we're finally going to get a Star Wars movie. It will be 7 years after the last one. I can't believe Rise of Skywalker. It'll been 7 years by the time that comes out. Yeah,
so obviously the end of 2019 was Rise of Skywalker, so it's like all of 2020. So you're talking like 5.5, 6 years in actual months time, I suppose. But yeah, but in terms of numbers, like the last one would have been 2019. This one
is
will be
May, isn't it?
2026. Yeah, May 2026.
Yeah. I used to like it when they did it in December. I did like that. I don't know why they ever moved away from that because it was great. Everyone had finished work and you could go, and I thought that was the best time to release one, to be fair.
I think they've learned from Solo, so I think this is in the summer slot the same as Solo, but not because of Solo. I think, as you said, this wasn't in the plan, right? So they had movies slated for December releases, but they also have other films in other Decembers. Marvel movies and what's it called? James Cameron's universe. Avatars. So I think when this came up, it was the case, right, where's open? Oh, well, actually, summer 26 is open. Right, okay, let's put it there then. It's open.
Yeah.
On
an unrelated topic, we talk about things. Avatar's a slog for me. It really is. But I'll leave that there. But it's a slog for me, Avatar.
I'm not going to lie. So I've seen the first one twice in cinemas when it came out.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it. I think that was in 2008 or whenever it was, right? Whenever that came out.
Back then, those effects and all that were mind-blowing. They were amazing. But yeah, I tried to watch the second one and I was like, I'm not doing this.
So I haven't seen it. I didn't check. Yeah. No. I was sort of intrigued, but not super excited. And then I missed it in cinemas, and then I've not watched it on Disney Plus yet because I just haven't got around to it. So
plus, you probably don't know what's going on.
Well, I will watch things if it gets us ready for it. So it's one of them ones where for me it took too long maybe to keep me hooked on the hook. But you never know if they release 1 and 2 in cinemas before number 3 comes out. I'll probably try and catch them on the big screen and see what it's all about. But until then, I'm probably going to wait, to be honest with you.
Absolutely.
Keeping on with our Star Wars stories, this one is again female cast related. Sophie Thatcher is keen to reprise her role as Drash in Star Wars. So Sophie Thatcher did play Drash. She was the leader of the Speeder Bike gang in Disney Plus series, The Book of Boba Fett, which is of course in the Mandalorian verse. She expressed her desire to return to the franchise, saying, "I would do it in a heartbeat." And I think that probably makes a lot of sense. Obviously, she starred in other shows, Companion Yellow Jackets. She obviously appeared in The Book of Boba Fett as Drash, leader of the cyborg biker gang on Tatooine. It was a controversial role, even though Drash and her gang of mods sort of brought back up old George Lucas concepts. Their addition was polarizing for fans, and it was people thought was a too sort of 1950s brought into the Star Wars galaxy, which I can certainly see. But it's 3 years later. The Mandoverse is kicking off with a big movie coming out next year, as we've said. She said she would love to do it. The Star Wars universe is so vast and so dense and so interesting, and Jon Favreau made it feel very political and very timely. It's such a cool universe. I would do it in a heartbeat. So I suppose let's not talk about Sophie returning as Drash, but just overall, do you think like that mod cyborg biker gang does have a role to play in the Mandoverse going forward, I suppose?
To be brutally honest, mate, and I don't really like criticising stuff, but that just didn't work for me. I don't think it fit. It could potentially work on another planet, but for me, it just didn't work on Tatooine. I thought all their performances were great and fine, but for that as a concept for me, just didn't work. And I know the concepts from George and that, but for me, it just didn't. After everything we've seen from Tatooine, and we've seen pod races, but they seem to fit and that type of stuff. It just didn't work for me. Those Vespa type hot rod bikes, I didn't like them, to be fair.
Yeah, definitely. It was definitely what would the word be?
I'm trying to think. It took me out of it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it was
a bit
quite
jarring.
polarizing. I remember watching it in sort of, we've seen a lot of Tatooine in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
And I think that we've seen the design aesthetic, whether it be land speeders, speeder bikes, whether it be pod racers, the sailboards, the Sandcola, they've all got distinct looks. All the transport does in Tatooine, I suppose. And these were very different. Now, I think it was they were trying to sort of move into, well, Tatooine's possibly changed since the fall of Jabba the Hutt, and it's sort of a bit of a new era, maybe, and trying to sort of give maybe the kids watching the source something cool to see. Obviously, it did tie into some of those, concepts, from the original Star Wars concepts, but you got to remember that, not all concepts are used because sometimes concepts don't fit, I suppose you could say. Yeah. I agree with what you said there. I think the design of them could fit in another planet, like with a different design aesthetic would match. I would agree with that. I do feel that the sort of gang was put in place just to set up. It sort of squashed two stories, didn't it? Squashed. It solved two story things. It was like it sorted out how Ming-Na Wen's character survived the blaster shot, and it also gave Boba Fett some army when he had to fight against the giant Rancor running wild.
See, for me, I thought the better thing would have been all the Tusken tribes united under him, and they fought the Pikes. For me, that would have been a better story beat. I'm not a writer. It would have felt better. Yeah, like I said, I have no issue. I'm no issue with their performance, like I said, but that was the only bit of the Book of Boba Fett that I didn't really like. Like it was too immersion breaking. It was very jarring, that concept. I was like, no, they don't fit for me, to be fair.
Yeah, and I think when you look at Star Wars, when you look at body modifications in Star Wars, it's usually because somebody's lost something. So it's not because they wanted to do it. Like Luke lost his hand, he got a new one. We see the challenges that brings. Vader almost died, so had to be replaced. More robot now than man, but it's not a thing to celebrate, if that makes sense. Lobot, if you read the Lando comic, it's quite tragic why he needs to have his implants in his head. I think like these things, it's usually through an accident or a tragedy, and then them getting this tech is sort of to keep them alive. Where these guys almost willy-nilly, I'll have a robotic arm, please. And it sort of takes that away, I suppose, for what we're used to in Star Wars. But they definitely look cool. And like I said, I think everyone who was involved did a good job in portraying the roles. Yeah. But I think we should see them on another planet, maybe causing trouble on, I don't know, maybe a Malastare or something like that. But that's just me. Obviously, you
And
can watch
to be fair,
Sophie.
the,
Sorry, say that again.
to be fair, the Fennec thing was she had the robotic stomach. Didn't really bother me. I was like, all right, fair enough. Like, I get it that they wanted to keep her alive. I get that. Like like you said, the modifications for the gang, like you said, just a bit weird. Like, why would you want a robotic hand? Like, like you said, Luke loses his hand. He needs a robotic hand. Same thing with other people who've lost limbs and that. That was just a bit weird for me.
It certainly was.
Yeah.
But you can watch Sophie in the Book of Boba Fett on Disney Plus and also on Yellow Jacket Season 3, which is on Paramount Plus with Showtime. That brings in sort of all the Star Wars news stories I had written down to cover over the last week. Iain, is there anything Star Wars news you want to discuss before we move into publishing?
Nothing that I can think off the top of my head. I did have a look before we came on, but I think we've covered pretty much everything. Some of the badge art I did see for Star Wars Celebration Japan came out. That looked pretty cool. Obviously, we're not. I mean, yourself are not going this year, but that looked pretty cool. But other than that, no, nothing I can really think of.
I did see the badge art, and I do hope they release them as posters maybe for people to buy because they did look absolutely wonderful and very Japanese-esque.
Absolutely.
Let's go into publishing then. I know you've been reading certainly books and a new comic since we last spoke. Iain, I don't know if you want to take it away with the Star Child that is Kylo Ren and Vader.
Yeah, so basically, the first issue of the Legacy of Vader comic came out not last week, the week before, written by Charles Soule, which is very big for me because Charles Soule wrote the Darth Vader run that I believe started in 2017, and that is up there with the Darth Plagueuses and the Star Wars stories that I think are very, very good. So I was hugely excited when we found out that he would be doing a Kylo Ren comic set in between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. And there's some really cool bits of the story, which I don't know if you'd like me to go into, but yeah, it was a really good, solid start.
Yeah, I suppose just talk us through where in the timeline the story picks us up, and then just like where does it go from there, I suppose.
So the story picks up literally straight after the Battle of Krayt, which obviously we see in the end of The Last Jedi. Kylo Ren goes back aboard his Star Destroyer, displays the dead body of levitates the dead body of Snoke above the stormtroopers and says, "Look, the Resistance girl, aka Rey, killed the Supreme Leader. I'm the Supreme Leader now." And then he floats Snoke's body out into space, and they all obviously cheer and say, "All right, Supreme Leader." And then we go through bits of Kylo Ren. He's still tortured. Obviously, we know he has emotional issues. He's still tortured about killing his father, about what Luke said to him, about Rey not joining him. So we see a bit of that, a bit of struggle. We see the dynamic between him and Hux. It's quite interesting to say Kylo Ren says, Snoke told me about his plans, but he never really informed me about how to run a military and what do we need to do. And Hux says that, but then Kylo Ren puts him in his place. And Hux has a line where he says basically, our people, and Kylo Ren says, my people forged the galaxy and have played an important role in everything. Your people produced officers, so don't put our people together. And you can tell Hux is annoyed with him. And then Kylo goes to Mustafar, and then the aliens that we see at the beginning of Rise of Skywalker, where he's killing them all.
Yes.
Yeah, we see him kill some more of them. So he obviously does not like the. I think they're the Alzamech, and they are. I think their purpose is to protect the Iron Fens part of Mustafar, which is like iron trees they planted, and obviously they protect Fortress Vader as well. He obviously kills them, goes into Fortress Vader. The doors open because a bit of his blood falls onto the floor. And then, weirdly, we find Veneer. Remember Veneer from Rogue One? The creepy attendant guy. He's there, but he's got a robot body now, like a big robot dog body. And his head is it's a bit like the Bomar monks, but instead of his brain, it's a head. And then he informs Kylo, like Kylo's main mission is, I need to destroy the past. We see him say that in the films, like kill it. And he's like, you poor ignorant boy, like that Vader's power came from his past. That's what made him so powerful. So I will obviously show you how that came, and then the next issue is taking us to Tatooine.
So do you think this is planting the seeds as to, obviously in the Rise of Skywalker, we see Hux. We never thought we'd see him turn on the First Order. And, you could say he just turns on Cal, not the First Order, but he does turn the Supreme Leader, when he's the spy, right? So is this planting the seeds as to why, Kylo's keep pushing him away here and keep pushing his buttons, and is going to push him to the point where he does become the spy?
Yeah, definitely. We already know from The Force Awakens, they don't like each other. I think Kylo Ren sees him as a... There's a line, I think, in the Last Jedi novel where he basically calls him a wild cur or something, and Snoke's like, oh, well, they have uses, but they look down on Hux. And like I said, if you know anything about General Hux's upbringing, his father was Brendel Hux, who was one of the founders of the First Order, but he this is from the book as well. He basically, Hux was his bastard son, and he fathered him out of wedlock, and he treated him terribly, and that type of thing. So yeah, you can tell that they don't like each other, and I could easily see this being setting the seeds for what we see in the Rise of Skywalker.
And so this visit to Mustafar and to Fortress Vader is not the one we see in the beginning of the Rise of Skywalker. This is a one that happens before this.
Yes, it's before. He goes actually into the fortress. Obviously, we don't see that in the Rise of Skywalker. He goes into the fortress. I thought we might see the Eye of the Webbish Bog, which is one thing I wish we'd seen on screen, because it's been in the comics a few times, and we've obviously never seen it on screen. But I thought we were going to see that, but obviously not at this point. But I could potentially see him returning to Mustafar throughout the series. I wish he'd taken up residence in Fortress Vader, because that would have been cool. But and then the Legacy of Vader 2, basically the synopsis for that is a return to Tatooine. Kylo Ren seeks the home planet of his grandfather, Anakin Skywalker. The young tyrant must go up against Gardulla the Hutt and her guards and Rancor. What secrets to the past below in the harsh sands of Mos Espa? That's interesting, because if it is Gardulla the Hutt and potentially as a Rancor, is she situated in Jabba's palace? And if that's the case, what happened to Boba Fett? I know this is 30 years on, but we'll see.
Yeah.
But it's good to see Gardulla the Hutt back in stories. We see her briefly in the Clone Wars, and obviously she's the Hutt behind Jabba in the Phantom Menace with the pod race. So I always happy to see Hutts, to be fair.
She's the Hutt who owned Anakin Skywalker.
Yes.
And she lost Anakin to Watto in the betting on the pod races, correct?
She did, yes. Yeah, he says that in the film, doesn't she? Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe he's going to go after the owners, the slave owners who owned his grandfather, maybe.
Absolutely, yeah. But as for a story, it's a really solid start. Like I said, Charles Soule, he writes fantastic Star Wars comics. And his Vader run, like I said, is up there with some of the best Star Wars stories ever, Legends of canon.
How many more issues is there to go?
I think his runs on Vader and that were normally 25 issues, because on Wikipedia it goes up to 7 at the moment. So I assume it's an ongoing thing. It'll be maybe potentially 25 issues like his Vader one was.
I hope so, because I had the feeling that there's going to be a limited one where, something like the Rise of Kylo Ren, where it's, it's anywhere between 4 and 6 issues. Hopefully not. Hopefully it's more, because it sounds like a very intriguing story, and the more time we can spend here, the more lovely details we can juice out.
Yeah, if there's anyone who can fill a gap in and make some of the more weirder lore type stuff fit, it's Charles Soule.
Indeed.
Just looking now to see how many issues there is. Yeah, there's 7. That's to be announced, but I think there'll be more than that, to be fair. Yeah. There's no synopsis for that yet or anything, but
awesome. What else have you been reading apart from that one?
Currently, I'm reading Cloak of Deception, which, for anyone who's a Legends fan, is an old Legends book set before the Phantom Menace. It's about Supreme Chancellor of the Law, and I'll read you the the back of the book. It says, mired in greed and corruption, tangled in bureaucracy, the Galactic Republic is crumbling in the outlying systems where the Trade Federation maintains a stranglehold on shipping routes, tensions are boiling over, and even now, the comfort of Coruscant is being invaded. As Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn and his apprentice Obi-Wan Kenobi foil an assassination attempt on Supreme Chancellor Valorum. But yeah, that's what it's about, vaguely.
Lovely. And have you got this? Is it like an original edition, or is it one of these new lovely editions of the EU?
This one, I'll tell you the truth, I got in Barnes & Noble in New York. I got 3 books when I was there. I got this one, I got Dark Rendezvous, which is a Clone Wars era book, and I got the Han Solo Adventures, which I all still need to read. And I went to New York about 2 years ago, so I do need to catch up my reading, to be fair.
Yeah. No. Awesome stuff. And have you got a lovely book on pre-order, I believe?
Yes, the new trilogy, which is coming out. The first book comes out. I think it's between the 20th and the 25th of February. I can't remember the date off the top of my head, but it's called Reign of the Empire. It's a 3-series book. I will just read you the synopsis now. But yeah, it's coming from Inkstone Books, which does like special versions of Star Wars books. And yeah, I've got that coming February 25th. That comes out. Yeah, it says there's basically Star Wars Reign of the Empire is a forthcoming novel trilogy which takes place between the events of Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, and Star Wars Episode 4, New Hope, and is set in the first years of the Galactic Empire's reign. Focusing on Mon Mothma, Saw Gerrera, and Bail Organa, the first novel, Mask of Fear, will be written by Alexander Freed and published on February the 25th. But yeah, it seems it's set between 19 BBY and 0 BBY, and there's 3 books. It says the second and third would be written by Rebecca Roanhouse and Fran Wilde, respectively, and published in spring 2026 and 2027. So we get a book a year.
Something to look forward to. Is there any other publishing news or snippets you want to chat about?
No, nothing at the moment. Like I said, I think we're all waiting for Celebration to see what's new gets announced. I can't remember too many books that are coming out this year. I know we've got Trials of the Jedi, which is the last one for the High Republic. Well, that phase of the High Republic, whatever they choose to do after that. We've obviously got Reign of the Empire. But other than that, I expect to see some publishing news at Celebration, because I do think there's not that many books coming out this year, to be fair.
That wraps up the publishing then. Let's talk about Star Wars purchases. Have you made any cool Star Wars purchases in the last couple of weeks, Iain?
The only thing, like I said the last time I was on, I'm waiting for my Prince Caesar Black Series figure from Star Action Figures, and then I'm waiting for the Anakin Skywalker Clone Wars Black Series, the one from Ahsoka where he's in the armour. And other than that, nothing at the moment, mate, no.
Awesome stuff. You have to let us know when those arrive. I need to look at what I've actually got pre-ordered and what I haven't, to be fair, because I've definitely got some of those figures you've mentioned, I think, waiting for them to arrive. And I've got a lot of packages here that have arrived from the Echo-based trading group, which I haven't opened. I need to get around to that. I need to stop letting life get in the way and push ahead. Let's talk Star Wars games for a minute before we wrap things up. I suppose, is there any gaming news that you've heard or anything happening or coming in? Or if you haven't heard anything, is there anything that you're hoping happens at Star Wars Celebration?
Well, in an ideal world, I would love Star Wars 1313 that got cancelled years ago to be re-announced and say they're going to make that, because that's still a sore spot for me. I did speak about this with one of my friends the other night. Did you see all the Battlefront 3 like cutscenes that got released on YouTube a while back?
No, I don't know. It doesn't ring any bells.
Really cool. So it was the Battlefront 3 from like the early 2000s that they were going to make that was pretty much done. And obviously, I think it got cancelled. It might have got cancelled in the merger for Disney, but it was quite interesting, like the story behind it, because they were going to use Ram Kota from The Force Unleashed in that game, and he was going to be one of the protagonists, and there was going to be like 2 Force-sensitive clones, which obviously is a bit weird. This is pre-Disney and all this type of thing. This is under obviously Lucasfilm and that, so that was cool. That was a cool little thing to watch. That game looks so good. Obviously, we never saw it, but thing. But yeah, what I'd hope, like I said, I would hope for 1313 to finally get re-announced and made, which I don't think is going to happen. And we were discussing this as well. I would love them just to make The Force Unleashed 3. Say it's Legends. Say it's not in the canon, but we're going to make it. And I think, because that would sell. 100% that would sell.
I think the biggest challenge is, and I think obviously when the acquisition happened, when Disney bought Lucasfilm, LucasArts was like shut down pretty much straight away. Sort of the Lucas's own games division that would actually work on things physically. Where I think obviously the Lucasfilm Games now is more just the licensing and publishing sort of deal maker, if that makes sense. So I think that would be the biggest challenge, would be who would make the games that maybe would, if a lot of it was done in-house before. I can't see them wanting to create those jobs again, because there's a reason why those jobs were gone. Was to streamline the business, was to make more money off licensing it out rather than creating it in-house, I suppose.
I do think we'll get a game announcement this year, though. I think it'll be the title and the release date for Jedi 3, which is obviously the last game of the trilogy. I think we'll get that this year. And I'm really hoping that we finally get whatever Bit Reactor have been working on for the real-time strategy game, because every now and then I tweet, I can't wait to see whether they like it. So they are working on it. So I want to see what they've been cooking for years.
Yeah, it certainly will be good. And it's funny, I was meeting a friend this morning, Brett, and he was talking about Battlefront 3. He says, we're just seeing Battlefront 3, don't we? And I was like, yeah, we're probably doing, I don't see why we cannot have that. I don't see why EA would want to not do that.
To be fair, I think they've gone all in on the new Battlefield. I know there was some test footage released for the new Battlefield. They seem to have gone all in on that. So yeah, there's just something about Star Wars Battlefront 3 they never get made. Even the originals never got made. Like the Battlefront 3 original, that game apparently was done, and it looked so good. You could take your ship from land and go up into space and do a space battle. It looked great, but it must just be a thing about Star Wars Battlefront 3. Even if you have to get around it and call it something else and give it to another studio to make, if you know what I mean. Yeah. I assume EA have got the rights to Battlefront. I assume like that they own. I don't know how it works. I don't know how it works, because they had that was when they had the exclusivity deal with obviously Disney Lucasfilm. So I don't know how that works. Whether they could send another Battlefront game out to another studio, I'm not sure.
It's very interesting. I'm not quite sure either, but hopefully we'll get some announcements at Celebration, and we'll go from there on that one.
But if you look for the concurrent players and that, Star Wars Battlefront still does very well. Battlefront 2, I still play it from time to time. It's an excellent game, and they did a really good job. So yeah, I would love to see a third installment.
I think that brings an end to all of sort of this week's talking points in the Star Wars universe. Is there anything you want to touch upon, Iain, that we haven't drilled home yet?
No, nothing really that I can think of now. But like I said, it's been good to just chat Star Wars again. It's been good.
Certainly has been. Where can the listeners find you on social media?
I'm on X and every other place at Star Wars Iain.
And you can find myself on X, formerly known as Twitter, and on Instagram at Geordie Jedi Pete. You can find the podcast on X at Boars Star. You can also find the podcast everywhere else, including Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube at Star Wars Podcast. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, please leave us a 5-star review, a lovely little sentence. It keeps us smiling all day, only takes you a few moments to write it. And if you are listening on any of the other wonderful podcast applications out there is quite a few of them now, please just leave us a top review, a lovely little sentence, all of the stars that you can. Again, it keeps us smiling for a long time, only takes you a few moments, and it does help people find the show. And if you are leaving those reviews, take a screenshot and send them into our social media, and you might just get some goodies in the post. But that is the end of this week's episode. May the Force be with you all, and remember, always tell that to Kanja Club.